Hello, everyone, and welcome to Preemie Chats, a space where we connect, learn, and share stories about the world of prematurity. I'm Leah Whitehead. I'm a proud preemie parent and former journalist, and I'm honored that you've chosen to join us here today. Preemie Chats is brought to you by the Canadian Premature Babies Foundation. You may also know it as CPBF. It's a parent-led charitable organization dedicated to supporting families, advocating for the needs of premature babies, and providing the latest information and resources to help parents and caregivers navigate this journey. Whether you are a parent, a healthcare professional, a researcher, or someone interested in learning more about preterm birth, you're in the right place. Together, we're building a supportive community where stories are shared, questions are answered, new evidence is explored, and no one feels alone. Be sure to visit our website there on the screen, canadianpreemies.org. There you'll find helpful resources, free resources, all of our latest projects, and most importantly, a community of people who want to see our babies thrive. If you're watching live today, I invite you to please join the conversation. You can share questions and comments in the chat, and we'll try to get to them during today's program. And if you're watching a recorded session, then you can still connect with us through our website. It is through meaningful discussions like what we're about to have that we advance, practice, and grow together. I'd also invite you to let us know where you're watching from. It's always interesting to see where people are tuning in from, and we love to hear from our viewing audience. So please take part. Your seat is at this table. We say it all the time here on Preemie Chats. Neonatal care has come a long way in the last 30, 20, even 10 years, and we're incredibly grateful for that progress. But advocacy still matters deeply because progress hasn't been equal. We know that prenatal, NICU, and postnatal care are not equitable across our country. Today, we're diving into a critical conversation: the unique challenges Black parents of preterm infants face, navigating the NICU, transitioning home, and encountering real gaps in the care and support they receive. And we're asking the hard questions. What would it take to design care and support programs that are truly equitable and inclusive? And what solutions are actually possible? To guide us through this conversation, and we're going to have surprise extra guests with us. It's going to be amazing. I can't wait. And I'm going to introduce you to the guide first, who's going to take us through, and that is Dr. Priscilla Boakye, an assistant professor in the Daphne Cockwell School of Nursing at Toronto Metropolitan University. Her research focuses on advancing equity and promoting optimal perinatal health outcomes for Black women and birthing persons. She embodies a deep commitment to social justice and works directly with Black women to translate research into meaningful evidence that can shape policies, programs, and healthier futures. Priscilla, we're so grateful to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you so much, and welcome everyone to this session. So we're going to, for time, I'm here with Ola, who has been a research assistant on this ongoing project, and two of our wonderful parent partners who were part of this study and are here to also add their voices to the information that we'll be presenting today. So our presentation today is titled "In the NICU and Beyond: Voices of Black Parents with Preterm Infants." And this is a collaborative project in partnership with the Canadian Premature Babies Foundation. And as you can see, Fabiana's name is here. We want to appreciate her so much. So to begin this conversation, we'd like to acknowledge our funding organization, which is the Social Science and Humanities Research Council of Canada. And we would also like to thank Canadian Premature Babies Foundation for being a partner on this project, who supported us throughout the grant application and all the way to the data collection and even the data interpretation. And we also like to acknowledge our parents, wonderful parents who contributed to sharing their experiences in an empowering way, and we are so happy to have two of them here who will join us. And also like to thank my university, which is the Toronto Metropolitan University, for providing the research infrastructure and support for this study to get to this phase. So the outline for our presentation today, this is an ongoing study, and so we'll provide a very brief overview of this study. We have published our protocol, which is online now, and I'm going to provide a brief background, the methods of this guiding this study, then we'll present some of the key findings and implications and conclusion before we can open up the space for questions. So I would like to begin by highlighting the disparities in preterm birth rate in Canada. And according to Statistics Canada, Canada's preterm birth rate is around 8.3. But within this number, there are also disparities in preterm birth outcomes. And a recent study looking at racial variations of diverse adverse perinatal outcomes has reported that Black birthing people are twice as likely to experience preterm birth at 32 weeks of gestation. And a study also in 2016 also examined the rate of preterm birth within Canada and also reported that there are disparities with Black women being about 9.6 times more percent to have a preterm birth. And at the time this study was conducted in 2016, these authors concluded that the findings that were emerging in Canada were similar to those that were from the United States. So that tells you that the disparities have existed for a very long time. Although evidence on disparities in preterm birth rates are beginning to emerge in Canada, there is also limited understanding about the experiences of these parents who have had preterm birth. So one of the things we have recognized is that within Canada, there is access to NICU and specialized care for preterm infant across Canada. But within this area of access, there is also inequities, as has been pointed by our facilitator in supportive care and resources. And this is often compounded by the stressful NICU environment that many parents endure, and particularly for Black parents, and we will highlight that in some of our findings. And given the intersection of these challenges many Black parents face, there's also a lot of evidence that is pointing to the fact that these experiences impact on the quality of care many parents receive, their transition readiness, and also parental mental health and well-being. And in connection to a recent scoping review that we conducted as part of this study, we found out that within Canadian context, there is a lot of gaps in terms of understanding Black parents' experiences navigating NICUs in Canada and what their support needs are in the NICU and beyond. So in partnership with the Canadian Premature Babies Foundation, we secured a shared partnership engaged grant to explore Black parents' experiences following a preterm birth and their perspective on engagement in the NICU to inform the co-creation of a culturally informed framework to promote equitable access to care and support. So this study is a two-phase qualitative exploratory design, and we have completed phase 1 of the data collection. In phase 1, we conducted focus groups and in-depth interviews with 40 Black parents of gender diverse background across Canada. So the focus groups, we had 5 focus groups ranging between 6 to 8 participants in each focus group. We also had one focus group discussion with the Parent Advisory Council of the Canadian Premature Babies Foundation to understand what are some of the gaps in services so that we can be able to triangulate the sources from the Parent Advisory Council, and those of the parents that we interviewed and had the focus group with. So at this stage, we have completed the data analysis and we are in the process of rolling out phase 2, which is the knowledge co-creation session. And during this session, we would be inviting the parents, some of the parents back, to engage them in 4 sessions to identify what are the pathways forward. So we'll present the findings, and based on the findings, we'll engage them in this knowledge co-creation process to create the culturally informed framework that would support care providers, community workers to support Black families with preterm infants. So the data was analyzed thematically, and we are going to go right into the findings of this study. So I would like to invite Ola to take over.
Thank you, Dr. Boakye, and welcome again, everybody, to this session. So in this findings, in between the findings, I will also invite our parents to share as well. So consistent with the landscape of neonatal care, the parents in our study were grateful for the universal care available in Canada. They acknowledge being able to have access to specialized NICU care for their preterm infants. As you can see, we've captured some of the stories in the quotes on the screen.
All right, thanks. So despite the gratitude expressed by parents being able to access NICU care for their infant, they also describe their experiences as isolating, which was often compounded by the stress of being a Black parent. And I think, as highlighted in the red statements, they talked about how the care, even though the NICU was well equipped, but the care felt culturally distant, and they have to navigate implicit bias, which also was so intense given the nature of the NICU environment. And for being Black parents, this was quite emotionally and physically challenging. The parents also talk about their unique struggles navigating predominantly a white health system and dealing with a lot of biases and stereotypes and some assumptions about their inability to care for their preterm infants. And as we indicated in the method section, we interviewed, also had gender diverse parents who joined the study. And one of the things we found was that the intersection of their identity, both as gender diverse parents and being Black, also had a significant impact on their experiences in the NICU. So this was one of the participants who talked about being a lesbian couple and being Black and the stigma that was associated, they experienced, and the fact that there were a lot of stereotypes and they felt being ignored, and a lot of intrusive questions about their family structure. And the idea that was an obvious disparity they found in the care experiences they had and how they were being treated without any respect. And many felt that other parents had the opportunity to have what they need for their kids. And when it came to them, it was there was the expectation that they wouldn't have more authority over their children. And for them, it was like being micromanaged at that phase of their experience. Ola?
Right. And equally, parents in our study noticed the apparent lack of Black peer supports. And so they voiced the need to have more Black peer supports in the NICU. In our study, we saw a difference in the parents who had Black peer support versus those who did not. As you can see on the screen, one of the parents who had Black peer support said they had a more positive experience. And this is opposite. This is in contrast to those who did not. So in general, just being Black and navigating the NICU environment was very challenging and mentally distressing. And parents want to see people who look like them, people who can understand their stories and where they're coming from. So now I'll invite our parents to the stage to add their voices and also share their experiences.
So parent 1, if you are here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we spent like 100 days in the NICU. It was a very stressful time frame, not being able to like really connect with other parents or even other like support groups. It felt a little bit isolating. Ended up becoming depressed, trying to deal with having a child in the NICU as well as navigating, like trying to find some sort of connection with other parents or even the nurses sometimes. I mean, I would, they, and then we were also LGBT um, family as well. So we were probably like a rare unicorn in the NICU at that time. So it was there wasn't really nobody that we could have connected with. We ended up leaving the NICU, not feeling well prepared to deal with um, our kids, not knowing what to expect, or just not even having like a connection with somebody to still like talk with them and be like, oh, this is what's going on and this is what happened. Felt also felt a bit like I wouldn't like, like you could tell like the way that they would communicate with other parents versus the way that they communicate with us. It was very noticeable, very uncomfortable. My partner also had a hard time because we were going through a lot of losses. So she was also pregnant at the time as well. So dealing with that and like questions asking us about like the donor and what who the donor was and everything like that it was a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And we have parent two.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for allowing me to speak. I just want to say that I wanted to lift the truth that too many women of color quietly go through a painful feelings while in the NICU. There's so much that's honestly on our heart that we don't know who to talk to and how to speak about what we're going through. And so, 9 times out of 10, as a woman of color, we basically suffer in silence. Um, For me, the fear was not just for myself, my safety, but also for my child. I felt that because if they could treat me this way, what would they be willing to do to my child? And then it became, I need to protect my baby. And that's not something that any parent or any mother, especially that being my first child, should experience. Many mothers talk about their concerns and they're basically brushed aside. Our intuitions are questioned, our emotions are minimized. We already feel this fear, this exhaustion, and this desperation for reassurance. So the lack of acknowledgement cuts real deep. It makes you feel like you're in this journey completely alone, even though you're surrounded by people. And that's how I felt every day walking into the NICU. I had my son at the start of COVID. So not only were we dealing with the pressures of COVID, now I'm new in this country. I cannot relate to anyone where I was. And I'm looking at my little baby in a box, scared to death that he will not make it. Every woman deserves to be seen and feel heard. The lack of support after the NICU doors closed was something that I felt immensely affected by because I had no idea who to talk to and how to share my experience without feeling the backlash and scared to death that someone might take action against me because of how I felt. Instead, it was represented that I should be grateful that my child survived versus the tattered emotions that I was left with. So I just wanted to speak to that and know that some of the parents who leave the NICU don't just leave the NICU with a healthy baby. My child has 3 diagnoses that he'll have to deal with for the rest of his life because of our experience. And as his mother, I have to help him along that way. And I will always need support, so as my child will need support. But just as our children are supported, the parents need support so that we can continue to support our kids. You know, some of us are in this alone. And if we don't get built up, we can't give our kids what they need. So thank you so much for allowing me to share that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Right. So we would move forward to look at the experiences beyond the NICU. So as elaborated by parent two about some of the experiences that they encounter once the NICU door is closed. So I think that whatever happens beyond the NICU also they reflect the kind of experiences they had in the NICU. And then this is a parent who talks about experiencing real anxiety, experiencing real anxiety because being the NICU and very dependent on the monitors and all that, and that provided some level of safety for them. But then they got a time they had to leave the NICU once the door was closed, and they felt it was quite challenging because the staff were discriminatory when you are talking to them. So I couldn't ask them questions, and I think that also contributed to me feeling anxious about how I'm going to handle this. And as a result of that, many got home and started experiencing postpartum anxiety because they kept thinking, how am I going to keep my baby alive? And I think that is always the stress of not being able to think that you are fully prepared to really transition home and assume that full responsibility of caring for their preterm infants. And the other thing we found was that as parent two had mentioned, that many of them, even around the follow-up visit with their OB-GYN, they did talk about their mental health struggles, and they were told it was baby blues. And I think this is a similar pattern across many research that Black women's mental health concerns are always not prioritized, and many a times they are even dismissed and not considered as something that is serious. And so there's also the idea that there isn't much support to check in, especially with postpartum depression for many of these parents. Ola?
All right. So another thing we heard during in our study was the financial strain that came with the transition, and this was something significant among newcomers and immigrants being new to the country. There was a loss of income or just not being able to work. So you can see it was very difficult to navigate the financial struggle. We have parents dealing with the stress and demands of caring for a preterm infant at home. And in some cases, they are not prepared to do that, but they also have to worry about money and being able to provide for themselves. So together with the financial findings and mental health, parents also describe difficulties navigating and accessing support. And in some cases, when this support was available, parents said it was not enough, it was not adequate. There were just a lot of challenges in asking questions or resources or who to talk to. And this also contributed to them feeling very overwhelmed or just being very distressed emotionally and mentally.
And I think parents also highlighted their needs beyond the NICU, and I think this was also captured by parent two, the need for follow-up visits, and not just to check on the progress of the baby, because many a times when care providers come in to do the follow-up, there's so much focus on the baby. But I think parents feel that when they are not okay, it robs them of the joy to take care of the child. And I think that paying attention to their well-being was something that they would want to see moving forward. And also the need for a culturally safe support groups and spaces for Black parents to share and to connect with each other. And they felt that this kind of support group is going to make a lot of sense for so many parents who are in this situation. So we want to also invite our parents, one and two, to add their voices in terms of what the support needs are beyond the NICU. So can we have parent one or two? Parent two? Leah, can we have a parent in?
I'm so sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. uh, it would be very, very comforting to have more representation, having ones who look like us, who can understand the cultural backgrounds. It's easier, it builds honest communication, and you can be yourself. You can actually open up about what's going on versus trying to mix words so that nothing happens to you. And yeah, just having that support and allowing ones to have you share your genuine fears and having to be able to speak. I know for me, sharing what really happened to me personally, allowing me to get past that has helped me to try to heal. You can't heal if you can't talk about it, and you can't talk about it if you're not comfortable or you feel safe, or you can't really do that with ones who don't really understand you or try to understand you, and without dismissing your experience. That could help with support. Thank you so much.
Parent one?
This parent too, I feel like um, to have someone that can connect with you culturally, also just like with regular life situations, having someone there that isn't going to dismiss you or more or less say you might be exaggerating what's going on helps a lot. To have a connection with somebody after the NICU experience is very important. My daughter will be 3 in January, and I feel like I still have PTSD when it comes to the NICU experience, and I don't have anybody that I can talk to and connect with and vent to. And I keep a lot of stuff in, and I feel like that's mentally doing something to me. And to have a connection or support outside would be amazing.
All right, thank you, both of you. So, what are the implications of this study? So, what we would like to conclude by saying that this study offers valuable insight on the challenges experienced by Black parents of preterm infants, which underscore the need for specific interventions and programs that are intentionally designed to address the needs of Black parents of preterm infants in the NICU and beyond. And this includes having representation of Black providers in the NICU, to strengthen current initiatives to reduce implicit bias and discriminatory practices in the NICU, and to design and implement culturally tailored peer support programs and culturally integrated discharge pathways that really takes into consideration the nuances and in the experiences of these parents, and to expand access to integrated mental health, social, and counseling programs in the NICU and beyond. I know some of these programs are existing in some NICUs, but that's why we are using the word to expand or to strengthen. We also think about they also talk about strengthening existing follow-up care and support post-NICU discharge, because many of them felt that was where the gaps are, especially during the early stages of transitioning home. And to other thing is to improve system navigation to connect parents to programs and resources. And I think this was something that we found particularly about parents who were new immigrants into this country, and how they felt that it was really hard finding the resources being in a new place. So having a system of navigation to support some of these parents was something that would really help address some of their challenges. And the last thing we want to highlight is addressing post-transition financial challenges. And I think many parents in our study share the idea of receiving coupons for parking when visiting their kids. One thing they talked about was, even though that was something that helped to ease the cost of transportation, but that they need something more to really augment the shortage in terms of income and the stress having to be at home and not being able to work and taking full responsibility of caring for their preterm infants, and yet experiencing such financial challenges. So I think this is something that can be addressed at a system level. So thank you, and we look forward to your questions. And so Leah, are you here?
I'm here. Thank you so much for that presentation. And I still have our parents on stage with us as well. And so if people have questions, please put them in the chat. But in the meantime, I want to kick it off by firstly thanking from the bottom of my heart those parents sharing their experience, because as a NICU parent myself, I know that every time we share our stories, it costs us something. It's so close to our heart. And so, oh, I'm getting emotional even just talking about it. When you were sharing, it's deep, it's rich, it's what people need to hear, and it's brave to share that. And so thank you so much. That's my first comment for you both. But my question for our parents to start us off is about the focus groups. And I'm just wondering, one of the comments was made about the lack of peer support or support groups that feel culturally safe. And I noticed one of the ways that you performed your qualitative research was with support the focus groups. And I'm wondering if that was a journey of some kind of healing for our parents who took part in that.
So you want me to answer, Leah? Or to the
You can
parents?
answer, our parents can answer. You probably received some feedback. So yeah.
Yeah, I think at the end of the focus group, most of the, and even the interviews, most of the parents left really appreciating the time and the space. And I think one of what in because we couldn't capture most of the data here, they said, well, something like this focus group is a healing space for some of us, right? And I think that's also the idea that nobody even followed up to ask them how they are doing. And many were so excited in terms of coming just to share their experiences, because this, wow, I didn't even know that there'll be an opportunity for me to tell to tell others what I went through. And I think for many of them, that was a moment of really healing and connecting with each other, and also validating some of the experiences they had in the NICU, because many felt, well, I thought I was the only one. I thought I was the only one who felt the experiencing some sort of encounters in the NICU, particularly with regards to their relationship with healthcare providers.
I'm wondering, you kind of did a 40 parents across Canada, and were you able to tease out whether the social landscape of this is similar across Canada, or are there places that are doing better than others?
I think generally across, because we had parents from BC, we had one from, I think some from Alberta, I think Manitou, Saskatchewan. Then we had, most of them were from Ontario. Then we had, I think, one or two parents from Montreal area as well. So we had parents across, not, we couldn't cover all the provinces, but at least we had parents from major provinces that had predominant Black population joining the study. And it was a similar experience across most of the parents that we interviewed.
And why do you think we haven't really caught up yet to where that care should be? Why is this still happening in almost 2026?
Well, great question. So we know that well, when it comes to issues around Black health and all that, those inequities are long-standing, and I think that this is an opportunity or this study in itself is a call to action, really, to really go back and look at what are we doing especially when it comes to neonatal care, particularly for preterm infants. What can we do better in order to support these parents? And I think part of why we are still in this stage is because there isn't any evidence in terms of looking at the experiences of Black parents. And I remember 2 years ago, we did a scoping review. We found no single study that really explored the experiences of Black parents. So whatever we published were coming from the United States. So if you don't have the evidence, what are you going to use to inform the redesign of these programs and interventions? And I think for us, this is the starting point to really look at what can we do better across to support these parents.
Parent number 2, you had a comment to add?
Yes, I just wanted to add that for me personally, as a woman of color, we didn't know, well, I didn't know who to talk to. So I think that's why so many studies and so many stories are not shared, because we don't know who to talk to and how to talk about our experience. And we are taught sometimes to just, not speak about things. So having us, giving us this opportunity to speak has done so much that I can't even speak on, but it has allowed that freedom to be able to speak about our experience. And if more mothers of color were allowed that safe space to speak about their experience, you would have a substantial amount of stories and to back it up. Thank you.
Wow.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for adding that. I wanted to talk about next steps as well, because you had lots of on your slide with implications, what almost like a rollout plan that you have, but it's huge. We have heard that it's a huge problem. We've seen in the research that this is a big deal. And so how do you even start? What's the plan moving forward?
Well, great question. So our plan is because this is the first phase of the study, we are going to roll out the next phase of the study in the winter. So we have this knowledge co-creation session where we are inviting some of the parents back in 4 sessions to really engage them to look at what are some of the pathways forward, and to design this culturally informed framework that will really support care providers, our community partner, and other organizations, because I know that Canadian Premature Babies Foundation does a lot of work around Canada, and they have other partner organizations. So we anticipate that this framework will really help to guide some of the programs and services that will be provided to these parents. So whilst we also acknowledge that this is quite a lot to be done in terms of the implications and some of the recommendations we have, we also do know that there are existing programs across some of these hospitals. So, for instance, I know there's that intentional approach to hiring, especially when it comes to representation within healthcare systems. So this is something that can really be strengthened. And also, I know that many hospitals have anti-discriminatory practices and policies around anti-Black racism and all that, so that needs to be strengthened. And I think that probably highlighting whatever goes around in the NICU is something that parents will really appreciate. People need to be aware of some of those bias, some of those stereotypes, because what parents felt was there's that assumption, which we know there's that dominant stereotype about Black parenthood or motherhood, where Black parents sometimes are deemed as not being unfit to care. And so that really translated in terms of how they experience the experiences in the NICU. So some of these assumptions, even though may be so subtle, but it does have an impact on parents. And I think that having that awareness and acknowledging that this is something that can really impact on parent-provider interaction. So it's a starting point. So, and I know that our partner organization is really doing a lot of great work. So this is an opportunity to really see how can we create that space, particularly for Black parents, to feel that sense of belonging and having that culturally safe space to really share and connect and support each other. So it's just a little initiative, one after the other, and I know we'll definitely get there.
I think even hearing, reading some of the comments you had from the parents who took part, hearing the voices of the parents who generously joined us today, though even hearing that is so important for our healthcare providers, because I know, as someone, I worked in NICU in the area of peer support for 10 years after I left NICU. And even what I was privileged to hear, was so similar in terms of, and, that I experienced myself, fear of repercussions for the care of a child. I heard so many stories of women and women of color being dismissed for exaggeration, like the comment was made. And the more that these, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like healthcare providers don't even know necessarily that this is happening, and that their hearts aren't necessarily for it to happen, but it still happens.
And I think that's a great point, because we have to recognize that the healthcare providers themselves are working in a system that really has a long-standing history in terms of its relationship with really Black populations when it comes to issues around health inequity and issues around mistrust. So to find parents in this space where it's an emotionally charged environment, it's an environment that many parents did not anticipate to get into, right? And so getting into that space and being there for sometimes 3 months, and recognizing your Blackness really within that space is something that it can be quite impactful for parents. But we have to also recognize that the healthcare provider themselves, we don't want it to seem like this is the blame of the health, is the responsibility of the healthcare provider. But we have to also acknowledge the structural system, the systems that are in place, and how these systems tend to shape the healthcare provider's attitude. Because many of these racial stereotypes, these assumptions that we hold, that many of us hold, are coming from the society, because they are built within the society. And so as a society, we have a responsibility to do better. And whatever happens in the society is just a reflection of what is going to happen within the healthcare institution. So that is where we need to really think about it, to have a more kind of systemic approach to addressing issues of implicit bias, discriminatory practices in the NICU, rather than really pointing fingers. So I think that's the point. We have to really address it as a system issue.
I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing. I'm wondering if any or all of you would like to give advice to those parents, those Black parents who are in NICU right now and feeling some of these things that you've highlighted and encountering those gaps. What would your advice be to them?
Okay, I'm sure maybe our parents would like to answer that.
My advice would be to if you're not feeling connected in the NICU right now, to still reach out to different avenues, TikTok, Instagram, other Facebook groups, to try and find a sense of connection, and just to know that it won't last forever.
Parent two?
Yeah, along with that, I know what helped me was Facebook group. It's all geared toward NICU support and mothers giving advice. But also because I'm not from Canada, I reached out back to my homeland, and I basically poured out to who I knew was going to pour into me so that I could keep going. So trying to find that any type of support to just keep you going, and to just start voicing even the little things. You know, my child hit this milestone, is because you're trying to give yourself that encouragement and your positivity to keep going.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Priscilla or Ola, do either of you have anything to add?
What I would want to add on top of what both of them have said is that parents need to feel that sense of empowerment, and I think that this is something that parents need to really own their story, and also to reach out, because sometimes people tend to hold on to their stories and not seeing the power in telling the story. So there's always this African proverb that says that when you when you tell your symptoms to somebody, that's the beginning of your treatment. And so they have to understand the power in telling, sharing their story to others that also can facilitate that process of healing, right? And so I think that they need to own their own experiences and having that courage. But also that requires creating that safe space, because many felt that space wasn't provided for them to feel that sense of safety, sense of belonging, to be able to share some of these experiences. And so for many, this opportunity to participate in this show was like, oh wow, this is the moment I've been looking for. I'm just going to tell my story my way. And really having some of them in the focus group, they felt that sense of validation just within that space of sharing with each other.
Well, how many phases is this going to have? Because we've talked about the first two. Is this going to be something that is a multi-year kind of project? Because I have to tell you, this is so important, and the work you're doing is so amazing that I'm excited to hear about it. I think we're going to need updates. Like what is the foreseeable future for this project? How long is it going to be going on?
So we just probably will have to wait about a year more to go. So we are done with the first phase now. So we are going to use the findings of this first phase to inform the phase 2 knowledge co-creation process. So we are hoping to roll out that somewhere in March, and hopefully that is where we are going to engage the parents in co-creating that framework that will really support. So we hope to come back next year sometime to really share the findings of what that framework looks like and how it can be implemented to really address the needs of Black families in partnership with these parents, because whatever we want to create has to be directly informed by them and with them, so that this is what they need and this is what they want to see in the framework. And I think that's where we'll come back to share the findings again. So,
well, I can't wait for you to do that, to hear the framework. And really, I think it'll be such a gift for our families across the country, especially when you hear those stories. And again, like you said, that it's a systemic thing and that healthcare providers do want to do the very best for our families. And so they'll be looking for something like this that will help them address some of those gaps in care. And so thank you so much to both of you and to our two parents who joined us today. The presentation was incredible. I think to even involve family voice in this very presentation is so key. And, you know, often I think families get forgotten, even in the research, even when they are, you know, the driving force behind real change happening, often we get left behind or things get created without us, and then we're invited in after the fact to rubber stamp it. And so I really appreciate even having parents joining us at the table today, and both of you coming and joining us, because it has created a very powerful presentation, one that I think will leave a lot of people thinking, and that will, again, just give us that excitement for what is to come, and to see how the project unfolds moving forward. So thank you again so much for being here.
Yeah, so thank you, Leah, for hosting this, and to Fabiana and her team for really supporting this project and getting it to this point. And we still have more time to go. And to our wonderful parents, we just want to say we love you all for the courage. And you've just inspired a lot of other parents who are listening, just for coming to tell your story. And we hope to connect with you again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us here today for this episode of Preemie Chats. A special thank you to Sanofi for their support of educational programs such as this one. And I want to remind you that if you missed any part of today's session or you want to revisit it, you can find this episode and all past episodes of Preemie Chats on our YouTube channel and website, canadianpreemies.org. And while you're there, you will, of course, be reminded that we are a charity, parent-led charity, and that we have so many free resources and support options available that I hope you'll take a few minutes to explore on the website. CPBF relies on the generous support of people like you. Your donations allow us to continue empowering families of premature babies every step of the way. Together, we can create a brighter future for all preemies and their families. Thank you for being a part of this community. We will see you next Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern for another live episode